Welcome to Connect the Plots with Cylia Erik, a podcast about the stories that connect us.
3, 2, 1, and we're live. I'm Eric Grove, and I'm a writer, and this is my friend Celia, and she's a reader, and today we are talking about our conversation with CL Polk, which was a perfectly normal conversation that did not have any technical problems whatsoever.
It was cursed. Cursed, I tell you! It was a good learning experience. We learned a lot of things about making sure that our tech setup was right, or my tech setup, because midway through that episode, I just walk off screen because my headphones weren't charged enough to last through the episode.
Yeah, I cut most of that out, but yeah, people who watch the YouTube recording are going to see a short period of time where it's just C and I talking, and there's like an empty spot where Celia is supposed to
just
go.
My bookshelves.
Just an empty window for Celia, and then I think like we address it.
Poor C's had their
they had
two different versions of their audio went out, which you again stitched together as good as you could.
At least two. I think probably more than two. The number of edits for that particular episode was way greater than any prior episode. And
they were a champ, man.
They were great. They were fantastic.
Thank goodness for good humor. But yes, it was cursed. I have burned sage in my office to try and banish whatever terrible vibes crept in. And we have not, so far, had that recur, and I'm grateful for that.
I do want to point out that one of the three of us did not have any technical problems, and that's this guy.
Yeah, because your whole job is the tech side. That's actually really reassuring.
Fair enough. I guess it would be particularly bad if the tech guy can't get his microphone and headphones to work.
Look, if all of a sudden the book notes and links for our book lists on our Patreon or other things go off the rails, then I'll take the hit, right? But I don't. It's not even technically on Bluetooth, so I just didn't. I don't know how headphones work. There's sounds in my ear holes.
I will say that, again, I'm glad that episode came midway through our season. If that was our first recording, I think I'd have been like, this whole endeavor is a bad idea. By the time we finally recorded that episode with C, I think that was our 8th, maybe, or 9th. I can't remember what order, how many. We recorded a bunch of episodes. We've recorded episodes that have not aired yet, and will not air until notably after.
Technically, C was our 6th interview.
Right, that went to air. Mm-hmm. But was not the 6th in order of recording.
Correct. Yes, the time travel of podcasting of it all. So that is my show talk. Is tech. It sure is important in an audiovisual, internet based.
We gotta make sure it works. But because we've done this a few times, before we had C on. I think that both of us kind of rolled with it pretty well, and I think C was incredibly patient with us, and what just the curse, I don't think it was just whatever could go wrong kind of seemed to go wrong. I specifically did leave into the edit of the episode, your fear that it could strike our eardrums next, which seems like a real escalation in terms of the episode acts. I'm thinking,
things just kept happening.
Will the internet go out? And you're like, no, we will in fact lose significant. We will lose an entire sense. A sense, one of our 5 senses will be eradicated.
Look, you're the one having me read body horror, so I blame you.
I am setting you up for anticipating that. Yeah. It was a fun conversation. I haven't had a chance to catch up with C in a little bit. As we record this, It's right before I'm going to go to Minneapolis for 4th Street Fantasy, and this will air after 4th Street Fantasy. But that was the last time I saw C, was actually at a 4th Street Fantasy a few years ago. So there's something kind of, I don't know, like synchronous about it. I kind of appreciate that.
I mean, part of our whole shtick, right, of the pod is me loving books and, like, gushing about them and stuff. I also recognize not everyone is comfortable with that, and so I really try and keep it under control. I think I've only done that to a couple people where I literally say, this is going to be over in a minute.
But you're just going to have to ride this out. Yeah.
And full-on fangirl for a good blurb of time before I can come back and be a normal human again. I think I did that with Seth Dickinson. And it was... I did apologize afterwards and went back to normal, but I just... The Trader Baru Cormorant, it was so impactful to me that I needed to. And he was so gracious about it, and we got through it. Came out the other side. It was fine. It was at like a Worldcon. And me doing that with C about the FEYWILD Job, because again, I just flip and love that book. I'm so excited for anyone listening. I really recommend you go and pre-order it and buy it, because it was delightful in all of the best ways.
When we recorded that episode, I had not finished reading it yet. And I, for the life of me, can't. I think maybe in our conversation after the CN episode, I had finished reading it. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm still. Anyway, I'm happy to have completed it, and I concur. It's a great book. I absolutely stand by kind of my assessment of it, my review of it, being that it was sort of like chicken nuggets that I enjoyed as a kid, but sort of elevated. So they still had the heart of the comfort food.
A Michelin star chicken nugget.
They still had that. The book still had the heart of a Dungeons and Dragons tie-in novel that gave me like a hit of nostalgia, but it had kind of added to that the craft and storytelling of a more sophisticated. Sophisticated is maybe not the right word, but like a book that's targeted towards an older audience, because those old licensed to D&D books, they were very clearly targeted at young teens, maybe even younger. I mean,
I think we call them the middle grade to YA.
Yeah, they were definitely
genre
in that time.
now. I don't think we called it back like that back then.
No. What I remember about them was that they were exclusively printed and for the most part in mass market paperbacks. Like there were some exceptions that would come out in hardback before they would come out in mass market paperbacks, but those were really rare. And they also were very romance light, because I think that they were targeting a young male reader, is my guess. Like I don't know what their strategy board for releasing Forgotten Realms tie-in novels was back in the early 90s, but I can imagine that that when there was a romance, it was definitely not like a romance story. It was just sort of,
it was like off screen almost. Yeah.
And the FEYWILD Job, I think, has broader aspirations for its audience. I don't know if 11-year-old Eric, if I read that book at 11, if I would appreciate it the same way that I do now. But I think it's more written for
11-year-old Cylia absolutely would have appreciated and gone gaga over it. I feel like at one point I was like punching the air as I was citing all the things I loved about it, and it's like I think I need a graphic of like all use your video tech skills to like
I gotta get like a starburst, like Cylia fists. I'll work on that
with the little like what the trope is that I'm so excited about. See, you've unleashed a monster. Now I want all the special things from you.
And I'll say this about the FEYWILD Job: I haven't run a Dungeons and Dragons game in a long time, because I'm a busy person, and the one thing that they don't warn you about when you get into tabletop role-playing games, as a young person is how logistically challenging it is to schedule events with adults.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
Where you're like, when you're 11 or 12 or 13, you're like, what are you doing Saturday? And you're like, nothing. I'm 12. I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's no big deal. And then when you hit like adulthood, creeping into middle age, you're like, what are you doing Saturday? Well, I've got to unload some wood chips to like do some yard labor, or
like literally I need to seal my fencing.
Yeah, you end up with these chores that like 11 and 12-year-olds just had no idea. They couldn't even anticipated them. They couldn't have even like guessed that was part of your future. When you're 12 years old, you'd never imagine that you're going to have to seal your fence. But sorry, kids, if you're listening to this podcast and this is how you find out.
Our YA demographic that listens to us curse all the time.
I do check off that this is an explicit podcast, which is mostly because...
We do the swears, people.
Yeah, mostly because I can't trust myself not to just randomly drop an F-bomb. And I don't know when I'm going to do it. So I'm just like, it's better safe. I'm just going to check it off.
But, for that very vocal contingent of middle grade and YA readers.
Someday you're going to need to seal your fence for the weather. And that's going to prevent you from returning to Forgotten Realms.
Well, and then, so one of the good things about us having recorded that conversation was that I figured out what I missed when my headphones went out, because C brought up Tanith Lee's Don't Drink the Sun and Sapphire Wine, which I'd never read by Tanith Lee. So I'm like super excited to go look those up. Yeah, and that was their top recommendation.
And I think that as I anticipated in that episode, I'm going to maybe prophesize that I might have some Tanith Lee books assigned to me in the future.
Correct.
Yeah, shocking, right? I am excited about that. I think it is. Sometimes these authors, and you're like, I want to read this author, but like, where do you start? And that was why it was great to have C give a very particular recommendation, and that's also why I appreciate your curation as well. So, it's. Where do you start is a perpetual question, I think, when you're...
Well, and you even talked about in the episode in the cover versus personal recommendation realm, and like literally our whole pod is all about personal recommendations.
Yeah. So I hopefully those people that are listening to us that have also not read Tanith Lee will have gotten C's suggestions and information, and then maybe more from you. And with that said, and maybe this is a later episode thing, but I bring chaos and I shake up the format. Do you want to talk a little bit about Tanith Lee, generally? Because I think Tanith Lee is sort of an interesting figure in the genre space, just from what I've heard.
Oh, see, I don't know. So there's some historical authors that bring a lot of lore with them, like the Robert Heinleins and of it all, right? It's like Worldcon hijinks and things like that. I actually, aside from the books I've read, I don't know anything about Tanith Lee.
Okay.
So what have you heard?
So I saw Tanith Lee having
legend.
I saw Tanith Lee having kind of a moment, probably within the last couple of years, of a lot of people rediscovering her. And I think it was related to people recognizing that there were later works that may have been inspired by Tanith Lee that people didn't necessarily
seen that book DNA. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I've definitely seen that. But it does. I think one of the things that stuck out with me there was, and we've talked about it a little bit on the show here, is that there are authors that kind of disappear from everybody's awareness, and then you kind of get rediscovered as people are like, hey, I found this thing. And it always reminds me of my wife has a story about knowing teenagers or younger 20-somethings when she was in her 30s that were like, guess about this new band that I heard of, Depeche Mode. And you're like,
oh my gosh, those YouTube reaction videos.
Yeah. Somebody just heard a Phil Collins song for the first time, and it's like, it's interesting. I'm glad, but also like that's wild. Like it's wild. It's wild when people discover things that were like best-selling novels or mega platinum albums. You didn't quite discover it. Like, I mean, we discovered it. Like, it was discovered like when it was originally released. I mean, you found it, and that's great. But and I think that Tanith Lee maybe falls in that category for me, where I don't want to read, because I'll be honest, I don't think I'd even heard her name until I saw it popping up on social media within the last year or two, which I think is reinforces that I have, decades of genre fiction to try to catch up on and become familiar with, but also how quickly, our community can, or like readers can move on. And
I just checked, and she did pass in 2015, so over a decade ago. She wrote more than 90 novels.
Jeez.
And 300 short stories.
And I think one of
the... And I know I didn't read more than a drop in the bucket of that.
I also think one of the interesting things about Tanith Lee that I had seen mentioned was that it seems like she was doing a lot of genre mixing, science fiction and fantasy, maybe in that. And I think that as we go into, as we're in the 2020s, and we've got our Gideon and the Knights and the Locked Tomb series, where you're like, oh wow, this science fiction and fantasy mashup, and it's like, it's great. It is, but there are precedents, like there are antecedents where there's been science fiction and fantasy mashups. I mean, even people even shared, I think, Tanith Lee covers, and they were like, Tanith Lee was doing goth, space fantasy before Gideon the Ninth was doing goth space fantasy.
Look, I will say one of the ways I sell Gideon the Ninth is lesbian necromancers in space.
I mean, that's on the book.
Get some.
Yeah, that's on the book. They are like they know what they're selling. I mean, and I love that. I love that book. I love that series. It's fantastic. I definitely read that book, and as much as I'm like, oh, I know there are precedents, like I read it and I'm like, oh, this seems fresh and interesting, and it is. It is a fresh and interesting approach. But it's a fresh and interesting approach that's building upon like a foundation. I've been thinking about that a lot because also as we record this, it's after the Nebula Awards conference was this past weekend. We were recording the weekend after, and during that conference and at Nebula Awards conferences for the last few years, they give what they call the Infinity Award to an author that did not get to get the
recognized in their time.
Did not get recognized as a grandmaster in their lifetime. And so for this last one, I believe it was Roger Zelazny, who's an author that like I'm familiar with predominantly because I remember playing an Amber role-playing game. Like we played, which is kind of a fun connection to C's episode, which is that back in the 80s and 90s, they would just make tie-in role-playing games for a lot of stuff.
I have a source book for a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, I love that
Robotech.
Game. Yeah, I love that game. I spent a lot of time in the Palladium games. Like that was sort of there was an era of my middle school role-playing game experience where we went between actually we didn't do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons because honestly at that point D&D 2nd edition was sort of out and it wasn't all that exciting. And D&D 2nd edition, deep amounts of love, but also like it was complicated and hard.
Thaco kicked my ass. I couldn't. It's still like I do numbers for a living, guys, and it still doesn't make any sense to me.
It is absolutely as backwards as it could possibly be. And when they kind of just fixed that in later editions, it was like, oh, you could just flip the numbers around and it wouldn't confuse people. For anybody that is listening that did not grow up with advanced, and I want to be clear about this because it wasn't Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, it was advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition. So advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition is actually I started with AD&D second edition, and then I did go back and play first edition after playing second edition. But second edition was my entry point. When I got my first Dungeons and Dragons book, I'll talk like I've mentioned this in like social media places. I may have even mentioned it on the podcast. I can't be expected to remember what I say out loud. Is my position. But there's one Christmas, and it was by far the coolest Christmas ever as far as my life. Like it's the high watermark for cool Christmases. It was the Christmas, I believe, of my when I was 11 years old, and on that Christmas I got 4 things all together that have since defined me as a human being. One was a set of clear green polyhedral dice. Another was the AD&D second edition player's handbook. The next one was the Ramones All the Stuff and More Volume 2 cassette tape, which I'm going to go to bat for being one of the coolest cassette tapes that ever existed, because it was in fact 2 complete Ramones albums plus bonus tracks, and I loved that tape forever. I've since acquired CDs. I still listen to that music on streaming services. And then Motorhead 1916, which was also absolutely a favorite of mine as an 11-year-old.
I want to point out that these are Eric lore drops / book DNAs.
Yeah, I mean they absolutely are. Like you can definitely like draw a line from like the Ramones and Motorhead I'm
tying up the little red strings with you now, Eric.
And even now, like as I work, like podcast recording that has a lot of time travel. Being a novelist also has a lot of time travel. So we talked like a very small amount about this with Fonda when we had Fonda on X number of episodes ago, you'll be editing a book and you'll be writing another book and you'll be working on thoughts for another book. Like you'll be working on like 3 or 4 books at the same time. At the moment, I have one novel that my agent's read that he gave me some feedback on that I need to revise, one novel that's in an early draft stage, one novel that's going through the edits with my publisher, and other novels. Another novel that my agent didn't particularly care for that I got some edit notes on, and I might try to see if I can make him care for it. And then other projects that are in the future. One of the projects that I'm working on is a fantasy novel, and it actually, like, one of the inspirations is the Trader Barrow Cormorant. So you and I haven't even talked about this, but that's definitely, like, that book was very much an inspiration for what I'm working on.
Let me know if you need a beta reader.
Yeah, right. And Motorhead is 100% like part of my writing playlist for that fantasy novel, and Dungeons and AD&D second edition is part of the book DNA of that book as well. That was all a long journey that I took everybody on into my weird 11-year-old Christmas to explain Thaco, which I wanted to explain to listen. Yeah, like we got there. I did not lose the string. It got pretty long, but I did not lose it. And so Thaco stands for 2-hit armor class 0, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. It does. Like I remember my friends, they would like print out like their own special pages with like graphs. So you'd be like, I rolled this number, and then I have this Thaco, and so I look on this, and then the number of graphs that were required in order to make
having lookup tables.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, this was in the 90s. This was on graph paper, if you were lucky, more likely the blue lined paper.
Yeah.
There was no Excel to help you. It was brutal, guys.
I think we built a Thaco like graph in WordPerfect. Like that's how old this is. This is showing my age. But the other one that strikes me from AD&D that I think people have forgotten, because Thaco kind of sucks up all of the "what were you thinking" in the room, are the saving throw tables in AD&D second edition, which.
This is so. I did play AD&D second edition. I have a friend of mine that will make fun of the fact that I did play 3 PCs at the same time.
Nice.
triplet half elven because I couldn't choose between a fighter, a druid, and a rogue. So I just played all three of them and somehow talked the dungeon master into that. That was a short-lived campaign because then we found Shadowrun.
Oh yeah.
And Rifts.
Yeah. So
which
Rifts
is
was
by Palladium, and Rifts is the game that I met my spouse through. And
yeah.
You could play a dragon, people. It was all over for me then. I was a Great Horn Dragon Hatchling. I played that bish from like freshman to my early 20s. Freshman year of high school to my early 20s. Like,
and
at
Rifts
the
was...
end, we had like taken over an underworld hell dimension.
Rifts,
like, it was great.
Rifts was the... So I had played a couple of Palladium games, I think because I was just aware of them. But then when Rifts came out on the scene, we were just like, it caught on like wildfire with my middle school friends. So that was... And the other thing that was nice about... I guess, about Rifts is that there were so many books that came out for it. And Dungeons and Dragons did this a little bit too. There was sort of like a share the cost thing that happened within my social circle. So for Rifts, it would be like, do you have the Atlantis source book? Yes. Do you have this source book? The other person has a different source book. And so you'd all get together to play Rifts. And
it was like a distributed library.
Yeah. So you'd have to everybody would have these knapsacks that were weighed like 80 pounds. My
usually a JanSport backpack.
Yep, a JanSport. My backpack in middle school, there would be like one or two school books, maybe, and some school supplies. But generally speaking, like I carried an absurd number.
A good 40
weight.
pounds.
Yeah, at least 40 pounds
Easy.
of role-playing game books. And so there were some of them that were Palladium, but then also for AD&D, they came up with a brilliant idea to sell complete handbooks that were targeted towards individual player character classes in the game. And there were so many of those that we all had to divide. We had to strategize. And we had to sit down and be like, well, I can't afford to buy the Wizard's book, but I can get the
Look, this is community building.
And it really was. Like, I mentioned this again when we were talking to C. Like, I think I learned an awful lot about storytelling from running a Dungeons and Dragons game. I was always the dungeon master. There were some examples when I wasn't, but it was uncommon. I was always the dungeon master, and you learn very quickly what your audience wants and how to give it to them. And generally speaking, when it's a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds, it's ridiculous fights. And stuff like
conflict that. And conflict resolution, maybe not in the plots, but with the other player characters.
Sure.
And math. Yeah. And empathy and imagination. I will down to the ground talk about how I'm really glad that tabletop gaming has gotten, I feel like has really gone on the stage with the advent of live action and YouTube and podcasting, or the oh my gosh, why is my brain blanking? The Brennan Lee Mulligan.
D20 or Dimension 20.
Dimension 20 on
and then Critical Role or Dropout. Is that what you're thinking?
Dropout on the Dropout app. Sorry, guys, my brain's just
we got there. We got there.
We got it. We did it. But those kind of venues help share stories in a different way because it's still storytelling. It's just collaborative storytelling, and the production values are higher, right? But because I certainly didn't have that cool. I would have lost my mind if I had those cool ass minis and battle sets, right? But to me, I feel like it also fundamentally is how I work, because I do better with an adventure buddy. I do better with a podcast partner. In my day job, I do better as a partner. It's to me the collaboration and is what feeds my ideating and working on things. To me, that's the coolest part.
Well, in a role-playing game, a tabletop role-playing game, is a very good encapsulation of the yes and ethos that you see also in improv groups. Where, I'm a dwarf that does this, and then the dungeon master says, okay, I'm going to run with that, or I'm going to integrate that. And you can very quickly identify problems when people are fighting the yes and. Like those are, like I could do hours talking about like various problem gameplay, games that I've had in the past. But for the most part, like as long as everybody comes into a D&D or a tabletop role-playing game with a yes and attitude, like I'm going to accept your premise that you're giving about your character, and then I'm going to try to build upon that rather than like argue with you about the premise. And it goes both ways. My absolute best friend, and we've been friends since we were 6-7 years old, and we're still very close friends now. We played Dungeons and Dragons extensively, like throughout our youth. And one of the things I think that he took away from that, and I remember him articulating it, and I articulated it back, which is that the game is more fun if you play if you can figure out what the dungeon master is going for and kind of lean into that and and the story rather than sort of fight it and try to, because you'll have like a player in a Dungeons and Dragons game that's like, well, I know that we're all investigating what happened to the townspeople that disappeared in the woods, but I want to go to those mountains and do something completely different.
Mine was always, and I am still friends with this very lovely friend of mine, but he just thought it was really funny to be a murder hobo, and so we'd like go across and like there'd be a clear plot point person in an alley.
Yeah.
Saying like, "Hey kid, come here, I got a thing I want to make sure you know," and just, okay, I squish his head. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, some people just want to watch the world burn.
Gremlin.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think even that though was a valuable lesson of sometimes you got to get everyone on the same page.
Yeah. I don't think it came up in our conversation with C, but one of the things that, in addition to our conversation at Viable Paradise, kind of talking about like romance and how to build a romance in the project that I was working on, which was fantastic for me. Not because just because he has such a sharp perspective on it. But also we talked about Shadowrun, like they are big into Shadowrun, and the project, the novel and like talk about Gideon the Ninth. That particular book that I brought in was a very space fantasy in space. And Gideon the Ninth was one of my comps when I was querying it, Shadowrun came up because that whole like the merger of fantasy and science fiction, and Shadowrun's great. I think for those of our in our audience that might not be familiar with Shadowrun from books or from video games or from playing the game, Shadowrun is basically if you were to take a cyberpunk setting. So imagine the Lost Contract of Isako, and then you were to throw fantasy into it. So there are also like, in addition to like big corporations being evil, they're run by dragons or by ogres or something to that effect. And
shamans. There's like a whole indigenous magic undercurrent, which I loved. Same thing for riffs. Like, yes, I could be a dragon. Also, there are like mechas and glitter boys and like you have, and it's post-apocalyptic, and so you have these like science fiction lasers and big mecha plus dragons and elves and fairies and ley line walkers, and just stories are cool, and so are like TTRPGs, and like if you're not reading books, I recommend you try and find a gaming crew, and I apologize in advance if you're an adult.
and you have to organize things around sealing your fence. And it's
So I'm going to get us back on track. Anything else that you wanted to reflect on about C's episode before we go into what's next?
Just so we're clear to the Chaos Goblins that were hexing us, we're so sorry, and we won't forget to leave you your offerings of milk and cookies next time. So don't ruin our recording in the future, please don't.
Please and thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the only other thing. Don't just please, Chaos Goblins. We'll be good.
I'm thinking about setting up a shrine over here.
We
I don't know
might,
that
we
the
might
saging wasn't enough.
We might need to.
So, do you want to hear what we've been reading first, or do you want the book assignment first?
Let's do what we've been reading first, because that might
Okay.
kind of organically lead itself into it.
Hilariously, I gave myself double credit on our last talkback with CN, so I'm going to put that in the show notes, because I previously had already stated I had read 2 of the books, but I double-checked this time, and no
Sneaky.
double credits.
Sneaky.
So, since we last talked, I have read Platform Decay in the
Okay.
Murderbot series. I also went into a Hugo's Panic. And all of these were from the Hugo nominee list from the Hugo's Voters Packet. The Incandescent, The Everlasting, When He Calls Your Name, Kaiju Agonastes, The Melee Illusion, The Girl That My Mother Is Leaving Me For, Automatic Noodle, and Never Eaten Vegetables.
Some of those
And then
are...
I took a breath and read Nobody's Baby by Olivia Waite. Many of those are short stories or novelettes. There's also a couple novellas in there as well as novels, which is one of the reasons I was able to breeze through them or bust through them. But yeah, and now I'm in the midst of reading. I put Bloodweaver and A Pirate's Life for Tea on hold while I continue Hugo Panic reading so that I can vote mindfully. And I'm in the midst of The Raven Scholar. And then I'll be reading the rest of the Hugo's list and then returning to Billy and Girl as well as Bloodweaver and A Pirate's Life for Tea.
I definitely got the Raven Scholar from the Hugo's Voter pamphlet. Or the packet. I said pamphlet. It's
not a pamphlet. It's very much larger.
I can't be held accountable for the things I say out loud.
Literally wrong.
It's just getting worse and worse.
Incorrect.
It's getting worse and worse. Yeah, I want to read that. What did you think about Incandescent and Everlasting? I think I've talked about those books before in a prior.
I liked Incandescent. I feel like the last quarter of the book really got me in a good way. Like, that's when I'm like, ooh, I see what you're doing here. And that really, like, it was good. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's great.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when it like fully got its hooks in me. But definitely the last quarter is already like, it's picked up a lot of steam.
Mm-hmm. And then the Everlasting, I see what you meant by like Arthuriana callbacks. It caused me a weird amount of anxiety because of the cycles of it all. Okay. I'm trying to like refer
Not
to what I'm
spoil
talking
it,
about
yeah.
without spoiling. It was great, and the interpersonal stress of it all stressed me out. But it was very skillful and like beautiful, and I like where they ended it. But yeah, it was, and I'm glad I feel like the author stuck the landing.
Yeah.
Like it could have rang hollow if it had ended in a different way.
I think both of those books I consumed predominantly by audiobook, but I had the physical copy, and I'll just say both of them have really strong audiobooks. I think the Everlasting, the audiobook narrator in particular, I really enjoyed quite a bit. And the Incandescent, both of them just had great audiobook productions. I also like, as I've mentioned before on the pod, I will often listen to an audiobook and then switch to like the physical book and back and forth. So I did both of them back and forth, but I think for those two, at least 70% of the reading, I'm doing air quotes because I don't know why, but of the consumption of the book was done by audiobook. And that maybe, I don't know, maybe that I don't want to undersell how strong the production value on those audiobooks are. They really are quite good.
I think the Hugo slate this year is incredibly strong.
Yeah.
Like there were multiple of of that list I just rattled off that I was just like, oh, my heart. So yeah, it was pretty great. I do think I needed both Platform Decay and Nobody's Baby on either side as just like a cozy little hug. They were both like comfort reading for me. Murderbot's 100% comfort reading.
The Murderbot series is interesting because I tend to not be much of a series reader, and I think this was even before we started on the pod. You were like, Eric, you need to keep reading the Murderbot series because it only gets better.
Because I wanted you to meet someone.
Yeah, and you're right. My favorite character appears in the second book, but I read the second and the third novella, and I enjoyed them both quite a bit. And it's one of those like. Again, like harkening back to our conversation with Fonda, how is it that I can like how do you catch up on the things that you missed or continue to read series while also reading forward? And, you're trying to read as a writer. I'm trying to read what's current in my genre. I'm also trying to read what's foundational in my genre. I'm also trying to read what's not quite released yet in my genre. So it's all over the place.
I mean, you can just read to cope, like me.
Yeah, or that.
All right, what have you read and finished?
So the only thing that I've finished, I think, since last time was When We Were Real. Because I did some traveling. I went to StokerCon this last weekend. And so that, weirdly enough, I thought I would do a lot of audiobook and reading while I was at StokerCon. I just didn't. When I was on the plane, I kind of had to veg out and not do anything. So I didn't. I did listen to. I'm now like 75% through So You Want to Be a Wizard, and I should be finishing that up shortly. But I did finish When We Were Real. Again, the audiobook is great. I really enjoyed When We Were Real. It was actually... I knew that it was going to be funny, and it was going to be clever, and it was going to be interesting, because Daryl Gregory is capable of all of those things. That's not a surprise. Like, that's just delivering his name on the book. I know that that's going to be the case. There is a heart to the book that I found really compelling. I was also surprised by some of the choices that it made. I definitely recommend it. It's a really strong book. I was talking to some writing friends about it because I think it's a really great example of a fully ensemble book that manages to do the ensemble really well. It's a challenge when you're writing a novel to have so many different characters and storylines and points of view. And Daryl just absolutely crushed it. And When We Were Real, they're all interwoven perfectly. The timing is great. The characters get the appropriate spotlight. It really seems like I read it, like you read it and it's one of those things where it's like, as a reader, I can just go, this is great, and I enjoy it. But as a writer, I'm like, I know how much work it took you to do this. Like, I know that this was such a pain in order to like figure it out.
So you can appreciate all of the
And because I've written like multi POV books, not to the extent of When We Were Real. To be clear, I'm not Daryl Gregory, or I have not attempted that feat yet in my life, and I don't know that I have it in me. But I've done where I've had like 5 point of view characters, and I had to have a spreadsheet, and I had to have like calculations to identify, like I used formulas in my spreadsheets to identify if characters were getting disproportionately too many words or not enough words to kind of help me to kind
help
of see
balance
the arc
level
of the
load
book. And I had like all sorts of like this subplot here and how do I balance it here. And that was a really complicated game of Tetris. So I can only imagine what Daryl had to do in order to make When We Were Real work. And it works so well, you can easily listen to it and not even think about it.
I'm really excited for you to finish So You Want to Be a Wizard, so I can geek out with you about it. My one of my truly favorite things that make me tear up even now every time I read it, and I've read it multiple times, is The Wizard's Oath, which is in that beginning when she reads it, and it's just like
it's a surprising book in some ways for me, and like there are things that surprise me that happen, and there are things that surprise me that don't happen. We can talk about that after I finish it. But I'm definitely enjoying it and looking forward to finishing it. I'm also currently in the middle of reading Crone, which is the new book by Keith Rawson, which is awesome. I mean, I'm probably like just under a third of the way through, and it's just strong. I mean, I've really, 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 really liked everything I've read by Keith Rawson. I think he's a great. He's a horror writer, Cylia, so spoiler or warning. But he writes the kind of horror that I really like to read, and I've like in particular, it's sort of the way that I've described it, even to Keith, because we were talking about this, I was like, this is sort of like dirtbag horror. It's horror that's happening to people that are like on the edges, of society, like the criminals and it's like a fusion. It's like a little bit of a fusion of like a crime-ish kind of like I have been really obsessed personally with. I'm always really obsessed with Elmore Leonard. I really enjoy Elmore Leonard as a crime writer, and I feel like there's some Elmore Leonard in Keith's. Maybe it's not, but it feels like there's some Elmore Leonard-y stuff in the DNA, or some crime novel DNA in what Keith is writing. But then he brings in horror, and I think it just is great. Like his book Fever House, which is the one that I would encourage people to start with, simply because it's such a banger book. It has, in my opinion, one of the coolest covers that's come out in the last 5 or 6 years, which is just like a demon hand giving the heavy metal horns. Which is why, like, I'd seen the cover and I was like, I gotta get that book. Before I knew anything else about it, I was like, that's a cool cover. And that book is sort of like the X-Files in Portland, Oregon, but with washed up rock and roll stars and massive apocalyptica vibes, and it just goes.
So it was written for you specifically.
Honestly, yeah. Like, there's so many elements of the book that I'm like, is Keith Rawson like writing books for a target audience? Where, like, again, we talked a little. I made the joke about like the Dungeons and Dragons tie-in books. They're like, we're going for that 12-year-old demographic, and then like I'm wondering if there's a board somewhere where Keith and his editors and agents are like, we're going for the Eric Grove demographic, and there might be some spillover into others.
I didn't want to tell you that is a marketing demographic.
I love it. I love that for me. But yeah, no, it's Fever House is definitely up my alley, and then Crone, which is due out I think in October this year, so I got it as an advanced arc, and I will surely talk about it more once I finished it, because I don't want to spoil anything, and I don't want to like. Anyway, I'll talk about it more when I finished it. But so far, I'm like, no, I'm into this. Like, it's weird when you read an author that every book you read and you're like, oh, is this better than the last one? I don't want to make them compete. Like, I don't want to put them
among your favorite.
Yeah, like
children.
I don't want to do that. So I would say that Keith Rawson is one of those authors where each book of his that I have read in succession, I've been like, I like this better than the prior book. But no, that can't be the case. It's recency bias, like I just like it more simply because it's the book that I've last read. But at the moment, Crone is my favorite Keith Rawson book. But that's probably because it's the Keith Rawson book that I haven't already read. What
are you reading next?
So I'll finish up with Crone. I'll finish up with So You Want to Be a Wizard. I was gonna read Altered Carbon. I still intend to read Altered Carbon. That will probably, I'll try to make that next. I think that's next up actually in my like library holds list. And then honestly, I should probably figure that out because I don't know. I think I've got some books that you've assigned me to catch up on, but I feel.
Also, the Hugo's Voters Packet.
I feel relatively caught up. The Raven Scholar is on my list. I think that may be one of the last book. I think that might be the last book in the Hugo.
Did you read all those short stories already?
No, I've read most of them. but I can blast through those. I know I can blast through those fast. I don't give myself credit for short stories, Celia.
They're still stories, Eric. I
know,
need you to value them.
I do value them. I'm just giving you a hard
Okay.
time.
I want to, before we get into our assigned readings, I want to call out, podcast listeners, you will not experience this, but for those watching the YouTube video, my bookshelves are filled with stacks of books, and I just need to own that because I gave Eric so much grief. In my defense, well, first of all, the intention here is I kept going to create the little tableaus for our Patreon posts where we put our book lists, because I take a picture with related books for every book list. And so far, I have multiple of the books from that conversation, which makes me feel proud of my library. I will say CN's had a donation from my spouse's video game library.
Oh, yeah, that's the Legend of Zelda.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But, so I'm like, oh, I better reorganize it, pulled everything off the shelves, and then I'm like, crap, I ran out of time, and then I ran out of steam, and then I've been busy, but I did take a picture to send to Eric.
Yeah.
And you started roasting me in our text chat.
Yeah, I wasn't roasting you. I was accepting you into the new. Like, I was like, this is good, Celia. Lean into this. It's healthy. It's healthy for you. It's good times.
Trying to bring me over to your side, but
Yeah.
they shall not always look like this. But I just wanted to own.
Right.
I wanted to own the fact that I've given you grief about book stacks before, and currently I'm living amongst what isn't on camera is at least a good 50% of the floor also covered in book stacks.
I'll also note that not shown here are the stacks of books that I got in Pittsburgh at StokerCon. So I've just got, like, again, stacks of
but you're going to shelve them, right?
books.
You're going to shelve them, right? All right.
Chaos.
Are we ready to assign books?
It's
to each
possible
other?
that me saying chaos and leaning into it is why the Chaos Gremlin thought that it was a good idea.
You summoned it.
Yeah, maybe it thought, like, this guy's into it. He'll appreciate some chaos. One really small detour that I wanted to mention.
Yes.
I'm kind of disappointed that the timing of this didn't work out. I saw that they announced a Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake
Ooh!
just within the last couple weeks. So it is going to be.
So you just gotta, like, stitch that into
I want to
CN
like
episodes.
Yeah, so that was, we're too late. It's over and done. You know, like, those episodes are recorded and off to the races. But yeah, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, that they announced a remake to this game. And I'm saying this to remind myself that I should send CN a note just to be like, hey, did you see that we used our podcast magic to make this happen?
Definitely.
Yeah, clearly
was-
we should get credit for it. But that was my short detour.
I love it.
Now, do you want to do the
Okay.
book assignment?
I'm going to do a twofer because I was told it was short,
Okay.
which is directly from C's episode. And I'm going to offer to actually get them because now I want them in my library and I will loan them to you.
Sweet.
Which is Tanith Lee's Don't Drink the Sun and Sapphire Wine.
Nice. Again, I'm excited to have, the recommendation for a place to start. So I'm looking forward to those. And I'm also going to take a book recommendation from our conversation with C, which is Even Though I Knew the End. Why do I always question myself about whether or not is it I knew or we knew? God, this is embarrassing. I've read this book. I loved this book. But is it Even Though I Knew the End? Gosh.
Since I haven't read it, I'm double checking my notes.
This is Everybody, even though I knew the end, is the name of it. Yeah. So there we go. A personal connection. A personal connection for me to that book, two personal connections, which is why I'm excited for you to read it. The first is my debut is a science fiction noir book, and there were a series of milestones that occurred leading up to me writing it and trying to get it put together that made me go like, I can make this happen. And this book is actually kind of one of them, because this book came out and it won a Nebula Award. And it did really well. I think. Yeah, I'm not gonna like pull out the book ledger, but it was popular. Like, I read it, I loved it. It got awards. A lot of people talked about it. A lot of people loved it. More people should talk about it. More people should love it. You should always read more books by CL Polk. You should read more books by everybody. You should really just double or triple the amount of books that you're reading generally. But I really enjoyed it, and the noir of it actually really encouraged me. It was one of the books that I remember reading and going like, I guess I can pull this off. Like, there is a market for people that want to do that. But also the book won the Nebula Award the year that I was doing the Nebula Awards ceremony. And let me rephrase that. When I was the assistant producer for the Nebula Awards. So I was kind of working behind the scenes to make it happen. And that gave me an opportunity to do two things. One was I got to be the one to email C, congratulations, and coordinate on how to ship the Nebula Award, which I recall being unnecessarily complicated because it was going across the border into Canada, and customs can be a real jerk about that stuff. So I was able to like wrap that around. But it was a real honor for me to be the person that got to send an email to see about that. And I also got to meet the editor of, even though I knew the end, who's like one of my favorite working editors in publishing, Carl Engel Laird. And, you know, we've talked before about how there are editors or agents or writers that you either just follow everything that they do. And Carl Engel Laird is an editor that, like, if you look up what Carl has edited, you will find, like, most of my top 10 books. Like, it's just pure brilliance. Like, his editorial perspective.
It's like me and Dongwon Song. Like, once you know the vibe of a specific agent or editor, you're like, yes, more of that.
Yeah, no, Carl Engel Laird's output, like in the authors that he edits, and are just all great. Carl Engel Laird is nominated, I think, for long form editor for the Hugos. I would encourage people to take a look at books that Carl Engel Laird edits. It's weird because it's hard sometimes to find what books people have edited. It's not like in the book necessarily, unless the author puts it in the acknowledgments. It's not like it's not like a movie where at the end you can see the credits. But
like sometimes the only reason I know is because of the like best editor nominations and their like list.
Or, you know, you have to look it up. But I as a working novelist, became aware of who the editors were, and I'm like, man, Carl Engel Laird, like, they're just all fascinating bangers. And even though I know the end is absolutely like, I could see a great collaboration that's happening in that novella between C's perspective and Carl bringing some stuff to it. And I think I talked to Carl a little bit about it because Carl was the acceptor, if I remember correctly, because C was not able to attend that awards ceremony in person, and I believe Carl accepted on their behalf. And I remember talking to Carl about it afterwards, and Carl was like, all I did was just noir it up. Like, I just put as much noir in there as possible. Like, that was my editorial influence. And I'm sure he did a lot more than that. But, like, it was kind of cool.
I'm, like, literally picturing, like, a graphic pencil just...
Well, I appreciated the understanding the role, right? Like, an editor, I'm very aware of this as a writer. Like, an editor's job, like, if you're working well, is to sort of amp up some things and maybe help you to tone down some other stuff and just kind of work with you and coordinate. And it seems like, and I haven't talked to C about this, but it seems like Carl just sort of came in and was like, so we're just going to noir the fuck out of this. And I love that book. So that's my assignment, and my convoluted, you know, like, personal and professional connection to it.
I've sometimes thought about writers and editors as like the writer is both the composer and the musician, and the editor is the conductor.
Yeah, I can see that. I think
obviously not a perfect analogy. There's a lot of different holes in it, but in terms of like bringing certain things out or like not changing the notes or the players of a performance, but really bringing the best out of the work in front of them.
Not to talk too much, but I think it's fun to mention, like, as we record this, I'm working on the edits for my novel with my editor, and I would say that the impression that I have of a good editor's role is that they do whatever they have to do. Like they are correcting my mistaken sentences. They are identifying plot holes. They are telling me where I need to, they're telling me where I need to increase or decrease the tempo. Like they're in there, they're doing so much that I would be hesitant to like limit it to like a single role. As far as I can tell, it's sort of like, I feel like the vibe is like old cartoons, like what is it, Mr. Magoo, the guy who can't see, and like there's always calamity happening all over him. I feel like as a writer, I'm Mr. Magoo, like moving forward, and the editor's like out there like stopping anvils from dropping on my head and
Nice.
like getting the banana peels out of the way, and I'm just like, what's going on? And that way, I feel like that's analogous to the relationship that you and I have, Celia, which is that I pop up here and I'm like, I can't be responsible for what I say out loud. I'm just going to say chaos. And meanwhile, you have lists and an organization. And then I just am like, I'm going to talk about a Legend of Zelda remake. Wow! So the editors are keeping the chaos gremlins of the world on task, I think. That's my ode to editors.
Okay. We did it. We got to the end of my list.
Awesome.
Speaking of.
So let's see. Do we want to mention the so after C's episode airs, we have on the schedule next. This is where I should have had this open.
Too many
it's John.
Open tabs.
It's John. Okay. Yeah, we should. Okay. So coming up next, folks, is John Wiswell, who was an absolute blast to record with, even if I can't remember what order we recorded things and what order they're going to be aired. But John Wiswell's The Dragon Has Some Complaints is coming out in July. We had a great conversation.
You guys, we talk about dragons. Yeah, I'm so excited.
And I think Celia and I have read this book now. Both of us have finished it for a while. I think my review's already out. I love it. I am a big fan of the book. It fulfilled one of my personal goals for the podcast, which was to talk to John Wiswell about the X-Men. Like, that was like, I want to get books to read, and I want to have all this thoughtful stuff. I'm like, I want to know what John thinks about Nightcrawler. And I don't know that I got as granular with that, but I still got a little.
Oh no, we have to talk to him again.
I got a little bit of that. So tune in next week. We will be talking to John Wiswell again. Just like one of the most fun conversations, and I think you will see it like in all of our faces. We all just had a good time. So we have not had a good time even when the chaos has happened with any of our guests. But John, I think, brings a very special John Wiswell magic and enthusiasm to the recording. So look forward to that next time. We will mention that on our social medias and so on and so forth. But I think that brings us to the end of this conversational episode. So until next time, keep reading.
May the Chaos Goblin stay quiet.
All right. You've been listening to Connect the Plots with Cilia Erik. Thanks. Please connect with us on social media. We're Connect the Plots Pod on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. You can also support us and gain access to exclusive content on our Patreon. That's at patreon.com/connecttheplots pod, all spelled out. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.